The superhero genre has an exhausting number of characters lost to time. Some never took off. Some had their 15 pages of spotlight and faded away. DC even has an in-universe dumping ground for them, a place called Limbo where stories never happen. The character I'm going to talk about today is a unique case. He never fell off. He was never forgotten. In fact, he was just mentioned in the recent Flash Bad Moon Rising special. You won't find him in Limbo, but you also won't find him in a solo book or even a team book for the foreseeable future. And maybe you'll never see him again. Here's why the 7th Starman, Jack Knight, is a ghost haunting the DC universe. Starman is a character with a surprisingly long legacy, yet today, most people probably know Stargirl more than Starman. We'll get to her later. The journey begins in 1941 with Ted Knight in Adventure Comics number 61. Ted Knight invents the Gravity Rod, a sci-fi wand powered by starlight, granting him the powers of flight and energy blasts. He originally designed the rod as a power source, but his superhero sister, the Phantom Lady, convinced him that blasting criminals in tights was better than free renewable energy. A less than stellar start to a superhero legacy. Decades later, his son Jack would inherit and redefine that mantle. Jack Knight was a collector of retro oddities, gimmicky mugs, old records, that kind of thing. Yet, he despised his father's old superhero life. The gaudy outfit, the macho posing, the absurdity for all. Lucky for him, Ted didn't want Jack to take up the mantle anyway. Not a great relationship. Instead, Ted passed it down to Jack's older brother, David. Donned in the classic Starman suit, wielding the cosmic wand, David proudly defended Opal City as the new Starman for about 5 minutes. He was struck down by Ted's old nemesis, the Mist, aided by his vicious son Kyle and his stuttering daughter Nash. David's superhero career came crashing down before he could even start. Jack didn't want the mantle, but he wanted revenge. Though he wouldn't settle for a spandex and cape. Jack was a punk-styled hero for the 90s. With the cosmic wand destroyed, Jack is forced to use the prototype cosmic staff, giving him a staff weapon to throw into with his self-taught jujutsu. Throughout his adventures, he'd meet Golden Age heroes like the elderly Wesley Dodds, Sandman. The stuttering Nash would become his main nemesis as the new Mist. Jack even befriended old villains. The Shade is a dapper gentleman with control over darkness, a former Jay Garrick villain who also crossed paths with the old Starman. He finds a reborn, childlike Solomon Grundy and takes him into his father's care. James Robinson's Starman series was more than just another superhero book, it was a love letter to comic history. Almost every past Starman returned in some way, their legacies fleshed out and reconnected into one sprawling family tree. The second Starman is complicated. At one point, this was Batman using star-themed gadgets instead of bats after he lost his memory. Dr. McNighter, that's Doc Midnight, also took up the mantle for a time. But during Robinson's run, this figure was retconned into someone much more surprising. But we'll circle back to that twist. The third Starman was McCall Thomas, an alien sent to conquer Earth who defected to defend it against his own people instead. Decades later, Jack discovered him weakened and amnesiac in a freak circus. McCall regains his strength and assists Jack in his adventures. He even forms a bond with Solomon Grundy. The fourth was Prince Gavin, another alien who could survive in space and defended his homeworld. We learn of him through a story told by the Shade. He didn't last long, but he did have some non-speaking cameos in Justice League Unlimited. The fifth Starman was Will Payton. When Prince Gavin died, he reincarnated into the body of Will Payton. And he had pretty standard superhero powers. Flight, energy blasts, so-and-so. Eventually, he'd be killed by Eclipso. And of course, number 6 and 7 are David and Jack Knight. There are even more obscure ones, like Ferris Knight in DC 1 Million. Victor Sono, a disgraced lawman of the Old West who fought alongside Jonah Hex, and Starboy in the 31st Century Legion of Superheroes. And here's the twist I mentioned earlier. The mysterious second Starman, turns out, thanks to time shenanigans, it was actually David Knight. A very weird, out-of-left-field circumstance, but it's a sweet way to give noble David a chance to be a hero. Weirder things have happened in comics. Speaking of weird comics, The first 2 issues of my crowd-funded comic, Brer Rabbit in the Jazz Age, is available to purchase. Follow a trickster shaman in a battle against the Ku Klux Klan at the height of their tyranny. Visit the link in the description, and while you're down there, be sure to like this video and subscribe for more comics content. Jack Knight has an ending unique to superheroes. It didn't end with his death or some kind of mysterious disappearance, but his retirement. He chose to live a normal life to raise his infant son, and he passed the cosmic staff on to Courtney Whitmore. Courtney Whitmore is created by Jeff Johns and has a lot of DC Universe lore packed in. Her stepfather was Pat Dugan, known as Stripesy, who was the adult sidekick of the teenage superhero the Star-Spangled Kid. Later years he would pilot a mech called Stripe, and Courtney would take up the name of Star-Spangled Kid. Then Jack passes down the cosmic staff to her, and she takes on the moniker of Stargirl. She's still active and has appeared in tons of DC Comics animated shows, and even got her own live-action series on the CW. That show heavily reworked the Starman legacy. In this, the original Starman was Sylvester Pemberton, who was originally the Star-Spangled Kid, which means Pat Dugan was the sidekick to the first Starman. Now, Ted Knight still exists in this show. Ted Knight invents the gravity rod, but he never became Starman, and Jack doesn't exist at all. None of the other Starmen do. The show is very underrated, by the way. I highly recommend it. But why rewrite history like that? Jack Knight's comic was a critical success, running for 7 years and nearly getting a live-action show on the Sci-Fi Channel. So why has Jack Knight been completely absent from DC stories for over 20 years? Here's the catch. Jack Knight is technically off-limits. His creator, James Robinson, has a contractual agreement with DC. Robinson considers Jack's story complete and doesn't want anyone else touching it. That's why you won't see him in big crossover events, team books, or spin-offs. The most we get are subtle references. Jack appeared in Justice Society number 12 at Courtney Whitmore's graduation. He also recently appeared in the new history of the DC Universe. In The Flash, Bad Moon Rising, Shade mentions Jack. Not by name, not as Starman, but just enough to imply he's still alive, raising his son somewhere off panel. And honestly, that's kind of beautiful. So few heroes get to rest. Jay Garrick is still zooming around, James Gordon is back on the streets as a beat cop at the ripe old age of, 78? Most heroes' stories end with their deaths, but not Jack's. He gets his time to shine, and gets his happy ending. So about a decade ago at Comic-Con, I cosplayed Jack Knight. Put on a leather jacket, a Flash t-shirt, goggles, and a broom handle wrapped in yellow tinfoil for the staff. Grant Morrison was holding a panel, and I went to ask him some questions, and he himself complimented me on it. That's the kind of character Jack is. Niche enough that fans recognize each other instantly, but beloved enough to earn respect from the legends. Starman has one of the richest legacies in the DC Universe, all thanks to James Robinson reviving the entire mythos, and Jeff Johns continuing it with Stargirl. Robinson's Starman is one of the finest superhero sagas ever written, right up there with Saga of the Swamp Thing or the best Batman stories. If you've never read this Starman, I can't recommend it enough. It's proof that so-called B or C listers can headline a run every bit as powerful as the greats. And if you want more comics history, check out my video on the surprising connection between Shazam and Harry Potter, or my deep dive into the morality of rebellion in comics. Hit like if you enjoyed this breakdown, it really helps the channel grow, and subscribe for more comic book explorations. Throw me a few bones on Ko-Fi if you'd like to support the channel. Until next time, I'm King Rex, your favorite star-spangled dinosaur. Keep on reading.